Jai Hind viewers, welcome back to the Global Strategic and Defense News. Today on Facts and Figures, I'm going to discuss Iran's victory over Israel in the 12-day war. Now, ending years of speculation whether Israel will attack Iran or not to destroy Iran's nuclear weapon capabilities. Finally, in the early morning of 13 June 2025, Israel struck Iran. Now, what happened? At 12:01 a.m., that is just a minute after midnight on 13th of June, 200 Israeli fighter aircrafts comprising F-15, F-16, and F-35 took off from various air bases of the Israeli Air Force spread across the length and breadth of Israel, and they headed towards Iran. Over Syria, they had mid-air refueling done by the Boeing 707s. And after entering Iraqi airspace, they positioned themselves on the western border of Iran. Now, at 3:30 a.m. Iran time, these fighter aircraft started firing on their designated targets. Within half an hour, that is by 4 a.m. Iran time, these aircrafts were on the way back to Israel. That morning, 5 such waves were carried out by the Israeli Air Force to destroy and decimate. Apart from the Iranian nuclear weapon capabilities, also the top nuclear scientist leadership and the top military leadership. Well, no doubt, this phase of the operation, termed as Operation Rising Lion by Israel, was very successful. They killed over 30 top Iranian military commanders, apart from 11 top nuclear scientists. And Israel also claimed to have destroyed a large part of the Iranian nuclear weapon capabilities. On 13th of June in the morning at 7:17 a.m., the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a recorded statement, announced to the world Operation Rising Lion and said this operation would take as many days as it needs be to totally destroy Iran's nuclear weapon capabilities. Also, one hidden aim in this entire operation was to effect a regime change in Iran, because Ayatollah Khamenei is perceived as the biggest living threat to Israel. He's been in power as the supreme leader of Iran since 6 August 1989. So with two main aims, that is to destroy the Iranian nuclear weapons capability and to effect a regime change, this Operation Rising Lion was put into force by Israel. But Israel totally miscalculated the Iranian response and retaliation. Israel thought that by decimating the Iranian top military leadership, the top nuclear scientists, the Iranian people would rise in an uprising against the supreme leader and have a regime change by themselves. And if this wasn't to happen, Israel was prepared to kill the supreme leader. But on 13th June in the morning at 11:35 a.m., Iran launched a counterattack termed as Operation True Promise 3. Under Operation True Promise 3, initially over 100 drones comprising Shahed 136 and Shahed 138 drones were launched towards Israel. And soon after, Iran launched ballistic missiles on Israel, which comprised the Fatah 110 missiles and the Zulfaqar ballistic missiles. Over the next few days, Iran and Israel were engaged in a war. Israel carrying out airstrikes and Iran carrying out strikes by ballistic missiles. But such was the effective damage being done by Iran that within a few days, 1/3 of Tel Aviv, which is the capital city of Israel, had been totally destroyed. So much so, on 17th of June, Israel passed an order wherein the domestic and the foreign media were barred from reporting about the damage to Israel and war-related information until unless they were cleared by the Israeli military censor, which is a wing of the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, also adding a problem to Israel was that it had barely 10 to 12 days of the interceptor missile stock left. Now, Israel, we all know, has a very good air defense system, which comprises the Iron Dome, the David Sling, the Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, and the THAAD air defense missile systems. 90% effectiveness was being given by Israel's air defense systems. But the balance 10%, which the air defense could not destroy the incoming Iranian missiles, was causing a lot of damage to Israel. Now, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptor missiles are supplied by Boeing Corporation of America. The Boeing Corporation was not able to manufacture these missiles because of the trade war, which had been going on between USA and China since April this year, as a result of which China had put a ban on export of magnets as well as rare earth minerals to USA. And to make such missiles, both these items are required in huge quantities. So Israel's intercepting missile stock was depleting with each passing day. Added to this factor was the enormous cost that Israel was facing due to this war. Every day's war with Iran was costing Israel $200 million. It was estimated that if the war went on for a month, it would cost Israel 12 billion American dollars. Already, the Bank of Israel has predicted that Israel's war with Hamas for a 2-year period from October 23 till October this year would cost Israel 55.6 billion American dollars, which is 10.81% of the Israeli economy, which is pegged at 541 billion American dollars. The 2-month Israeli Hezbollah war last year had costed Israel 6.67 billion American dollars. So clearly, Israel was under a lot of economic duress too. But what changed the entire game was on 20th of June, Iran started launching the Fateh 2 hypersonic missiles on Israel. Now, viewers, hypersonic missiles have got this uncanny ability that they cannot be intercepted by any of the known world's air defense systems because firstly, they fly at a speed of 15 Mach and more, and they fly at very high altitudes. So when these hypersonic missiles started causing severe damage to Israel, Israel knew that it was facing the biggest crisis since its unilateral independence declared on 14th May 1948. Hence, on 20th June, the Israeli Prime Minister telephoned the American President Donald Trump, requesting him to intervene and launch attacks on Iran. Well, Donald Trump initially wasn't interested in entering this war because, as we all remember, during the election rallies last year for the US presidential election, Donald Trump had promised the American voters that he would not take part in any global war. But there were two factors which were weighing heavily on Donald Trump at this point of time. One was the American Jewish lobby was putting a lot of pressure on Donald Trump. The American Jewish lobby are very rich people in America who fund both the Republicans and the Democrats in any elections. As a result, they have a big say in the dealings and the conduct of the White House. And also, Israel was putting a lot of pressure on America to intervene because it was facing the biggest crisis since 1948, like I just told you. Much against his own wishes, much against the wishes of the American citizens, Donald Trump gave the go-ahead for Operation Midnight Hammer, in which B-2 stealth bombers in the early hours of 21st June carried out strikes on the 3 nuclear installations of Iran. That is Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. These attacks were carried out at 2:10 a.m. Iran time, and within half an hour, by 2:40 a.m. Iran time, these aircrafts were out of the Iranian airspace. Initially, the Americans claimed a lot of victory, saying that they had totally destroyed the Iranian nuclear facilities. But as a result, as reports came out later, the Iranian nuclear facilities had not been destroyed at all. So now brings the talk to an important juncture. Would Iran retaliate? Yes, it did. On 23rd June, it launched strikes on the American air bases, on the American military bases in the Middle East, in Qatar as well as in Iraq. But surprisingly, neither any Iranian citizen was killed during Operation Midnight Hammer, which the Americans had launched on Iran on 21st June, and neither any American soldier died in the Irani counterattack. This was because both the countries had informed each other well in advance, and the people were moved out, resulting in zero casualties. It isn't possible. With such big missiles and bombs being used and not a single human dying, it is impossible. This clearly shows both the countries had informed each other well in advance. Donald Trump also knew one thing, that the day the coffin of an American soldier reaches the American soil, it will be the end of his political career. The reason? Because every human life is valued very much in America. And secondly, the American citizens has started protesting against Donald Trump's decision to enter the Iran-Israel war. There were calls for his impeachment because many said he had violated Article 1, Section 11, Clause 8 of the American Constitution, which clearly states that the American president has to take the permission of the Congress before entering into any war. So clearly, Donald Trump did not want this to escalate, but just to keep the American Jewish lobby happy, the Israeli prime minister happy, he had launched this so-called strike, which resulted in nothing. And on 23rd June itself, the day when the Iranians had launched the counterattack on the American military bases in the Middle East, that day at 6:02 p.m. EST, Donald Trump announced ceasefire between Iran and Israel, thus bringing to an end this 12-day war. Because this ceasefire was in three phases, and the final phase was effective on 25th June, hence the period called the 12-day war. Though Iran suffered more casualties, it had 974 Iranians killed in this entire 12-day war compared to 30 killed in Israel. It had more than 4,000 injured compared to more than 3,000 injured in Israel. The devastation was more in Iran, but Iran emerged victorious. Why? Because Israel and America's two main aims of destroying Iranians' nuclear weapons capability and effecting a regime change were not successful. In military terms, this is called as Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory means where the side wins despite suffering heavy casualties. Iran won this war. The future for the Middle East now totally changes. Iran has now emerged as the undisputed leader of not only the Middle East, but of the entire 57-nation Islamic world. And the day is not far when Iran will possess the nuclear weapon. Already during this 12-day war, China and Russia announced full nuclear support to Iran. Iran has already pulled out from the International Atomic Energy Commission. It will now develop a nuclear weapon because there's a growing clamor amongst the Iranian citizens to now have a nuclear weapon. And the day Iran has a nuclear weapon, a two-state solution will be a reality, not a possibility anymore. In the times ahead, this Operation Rising Lion, which Israel launched on Iran, will boomerang very badly on Israel. Thank you, viewers, for watching this episode of Facts and Figures on GSDN. Please do like this show, forward it as much as you can, subscribe to the channel if you haven't so far, and most important, give your comments because your comments are very valuable as they help me decide the future course of action for GSDN. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.